I'm going to kick Michael off for this episode.
Do not have the power nor the votes.
Yorgos Lanthimos has the power, though.
No, he doesn't.
He called me yesterday. He said, keep Michael off this
you went
episode.
to high school with Emma Stone, and the director of the film called you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a very popular guy.
Fucking Santa Claus is in my ass right now.
Well, you know, when you're the face of a podcast, you know, people call you.
He runs the business email. Okay.
And by that I mean I haven't checked it in months. If you've reached out, I haven't seen it.
In the description of every episode, it says, if you're interested in recommending something, please reach out.
That's just to give people
Never
hope.
check it.
There's no fucking way I'm checking that.
Also, why would we take
Now watch the
suggestions from peasants?
The first time somebody writes in, I'm going to be like, oh, dude, we got to fucking do this.
Yeah.
No, we just say that and then never do. Just avoid all of their suggestions.
Respond to their email like a really long, like, thank you so much. You know, I really appreciate that. And, you know, we're definitely going to do, and then just never do it.
P.S. We're not doing anything you suggested.
It's like, oh, man, I used to love The Green Mile when I was growing up. Great story, great movie. We're never fucking doing it.
Thanks,
Tom
bye.
Hanks was on the list. We refuse.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
Nah, he'll always be my little Woody. Well, I guess for all of you curious, if you haven't seen it yet, we did Poor Things.
Poor thing.
Poor Things. It was a movie, and I've been saying this guy's name all day, so I'm finally going to get to say it on recording. Everybody ready?
Mm-hmm.
Directed by Yorgos Lanthimos. I finally said it. Now I can never say it again. And I'm done.
He was like, I have to say this perfectly, so let me just do it like 20 times.
Yeah. But we did Poor Things. I wanted to see this. It looked fun from the trailers, and Emma Stone ended up winning an Oscar for it recently. So we were like, well, let's cover it, see what it is. I've never seen a movie by this guy, and apparently he tells insane stories.
Yeah, really
and
freaking crazy.
Does like insane camera work that I couldn't really, like there wasn't a particular style he was shooting in. It was just like,
A bunch of them
it's like
together.
a Beastie Boys video from the 90s, and now it's like a art film, and now it's this, and it was weird.
Yeah.
It's weird to see.
I almost feel like it's in that realm of, although Michael's going to hate that I say this, but Everything Everywhere All at Once, where it's crazy and you just kind of have to accept that it's crazy, and then once you're like along for the ride, then you can start to understand the story and the characters a little bit better. And after the first initial shock of it, it gets like interesting for me. I enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, no, I mean, I didn't really have a problem with it. I was kind of tied up in the Bella Baxter story, and then I started having to call her Virginia or Valerie, and I wasn't into it.
That was the last 15 minutes of the movie, Steve.
Yeah.
Out of the 2.5 hours.
There was no Victoria was her new name. It's like no. Well, that's Bella.
No, that was her old name.
Yeah, that's her changed name.
That's her previous brain's name.
Yeah, her previous brain. But like I didn't know what like the concept was. I just thought this was Lady Frankenstein and Defoe was Frankenstein, and he was bringing like people back to life. I thought it was going to be like kind of like a comedy, like.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
That's what you thought?
They did play it off in the trailer as being like a little bit like quirky, but I didn't think it was like a comedy per se, although I laughed several times.
Yeah, I think just from like the awkwardness of it and like some of the line delivery, you're just kind of like, all right.
Some of it was like the dry delivery of lines when like what they're saying is funny, but the way they're saying it is like serious and dry.
Right.
Yeah.
That's how all of it went.
Yeah, it was.
It was the same but different. It was all very blunt, and the bluntness of it. It's more of a cutting laugh where you're like, oh wow, they said that in that tone, zero intonation. Oh, okay, that's what's going on. Okay,
it's like at the end there when she goes with her ex, and he's just like, yeah, I have to keep this gun around me. I suspect a revolt coming soon from
right.
all of his
from
house
the staff. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, all right, that's kind of funny, but it was just like
totally
just because it came out of nowhere, and I was like, I wasn't expecting this guy to like load a freaking revolver to go see his house.
I think her past was like completely unnecessary for the film.
Oh, like kind of like diving into like her the previous life?
I don't think he needed to be there. I mean, when they swap brains with a goat, it's like, okay, she's as good as her creator was, but it was like that was to be expected because she.
Yeah, I mean,
there's a couple instances of her having that medical knowledge and things like, and how would you not growing up only in that house, only cutting up people? There was a like you were saying before, it was very scattered, and once you're okay with scattered, everything was fine. Mostly linear with because there's always a difference between like twists in movies and linear surprises where it goes in a direction you weren't thinking, but since it's so scattered, it's not surprising after like the third time they do it.
Right.
So like the first time where like Bella cut too, and then she's just stabbing the crap out of the guy. It was like, okay, we thought she was gonna like do like I thought she was gonna do like some rudimentary opening, which is what her creator was doing, but it was just not. She's just shanking him in the eyeballs.
Yeah, after kinda, playing with his floppiness.
Yeah, that was a little weird. It's like, don't play with dead people like that.
Yes. Well, and the whole movie is really just about Bella and her learning how to be a human again because baby brain, and then also it's happening accelerated, but she has an adult body, so like her hormones and everything are so different than what it would be for an infant child, which is why I think she progresses so quickly. But yeah, I thought it was a really interesting performance, and I'm sure we will go through all of those little things.
Yeah. All those poor things. No, but I mean, just to get back to what you were saying, like, I think I do agree just with like the ex-husband kind of walking in, like with that only being like maybe the last like 13 minutes, 15 minutes of the movie, it was kind of like, yeah, that kind of seemed a little shoehorned in, but like it was still kind of nice to see like that she became almost a better person now that she's been replaced. Like when you go back and you think of,
she swapped his brain with a goat, so I don't know if better person.
Well, I mean, he was about to shoot his staff. I would turn that guy into a goat.
She was about to shoot her.
She was about to shoot who?
He was about to shoot her.
Yeah. And she only shot him in the foot, so I think he got out.
Wow.
Okay.
And she even saved him. But no, so the whole point of that thing happening at the end is what ties up the movie. Without that, like, they would have to write a completely different ending. So
no, and like I totally get that, but it just like just to kind of see it from like, Michael's point of view at this point, but like it does kind of seem like that was the only part that almost seemed like, all right, quick, throw this in. Well, I mean, just to like
several things were just kind of shoehorned in, like her fiance. It was just like, walk with me after class, and then it's like, you're in the film now.
Yeah,
like,
I felt bad for that guy this whole movie.
Well, he was there solely to take abuse. That was it. He was a sponge so that Bella can grow.
But like,
that was about it.
I mean, he also was somebody that she didn't have any experiences with anybody else, so she didn't know if he was even like worth anything.
Right.
But then she went out and experienced all this stuff, and she came back and she realized that like he's actually kind of just genuinely a good person and isn't trying to take advantage of me.
Yeah,
I can get along with that.
He was the only one outside of Defoe who really supported
she does state, she's like, no, this is practical.
Yeah.
Which is in today's society, there's been a lot of changes in relationships and things like that as society progresses, and now it's like a lot of relationships are solely practical. Like, it is kind of the development of relationships is it starts as all these rushing emotions that you can't control, and then it turns into a practical, this is how we coexist.
What the interesting thing about it though is that she is only being practical because she experiences very little emotion because of her condition, we'll call it. So yeah, she was being a little bit more matter of fact about it, but I think that's because of her state of mind and less about relationship stuff. You know, she even said herself, like, she's like, I don't really know what love is. Like, I don't know what that feels like. So how can I say I love you and I want to marry you when I don't know what that feels like?
She went through that with Ruffalo trying to explain, you know, because he was emotion personified, and then her original brain's husband was very not evil, but a methodical, controlling general.
Right.
You know,
yeah,
so
they made him off to be the bad guy, for sure.
Well, not necessarily even the bad guy. He was one side of humanity, and Mark Ruffalo was another side of humanity. And then she has a caring parental figure. She has a lover in the first fella. She has the emotional guy in Mark Ruffalo, and her ex is the very logical, methodical, tedious kind of, you know, that side of the brain. So it was like there was each type of influence and that's how we create what we know to be relationships and feelings is, you know, just a loving figure. There's somebody, you know, a parental figure, pure love from the student to her, pure emotion from Mark Ruffalo, pure logic and controlling and, you know, trying to control the world, chaos, trying to experience the world, trying to love the world, and then a guiding figure. So if you look at the overarching things, he covered his bases with that. And then even the experiences that way. She had very meaningless social interaction. She had very meaningful social interaction. She had very meaningless physical experiences. She had very meaningful physical experiences too. And then she saw the joy in indulgence, and then she saw the sickness that indulgence can bring. Then she saw the good side of humanity in her partner in the brothel, and she saw the bad side of humanity in the poor things in the slum. So it was there was a lot of duality going on, but it was like 4 or 5 different
and
dueling
they just threw her in
fates,
the middle,
and she's just thrust into the middle of it, which kind of allowed us to see how confusing that would have been for her. So that was a good way to tell that kind of story, having both sides of the coin. But I feel like they never really solidified who she became.
I think they 100% did.
Okay, so I think they didn't, because they showed her choosing, going back and forth and back and forth. So if she'd gone with Mark Ruffalo and then came back, that was one thing. But then she left again, then came back, but still swapped the brains of the guy with the goat. So she still kind of kept him around a little bit, which was kind of weird for me, where it was just kind of like, okay, she didn't totally cut everything out and become this one thing, which I feel like a lot of us, we do that. This is what we want, but we don't mind a little bit of this, and we don't mind a little bit of that outside of our norms, which is just general people stuff. So it was kind of weird. They never pointed her in one specific direction. She always had very different outside factors around, which is what we have as humans.
Yeah, well, that's why I was going to say I feel like it does give her an established character at the end, because, again, like, you're going through her story as if it is literally a toddler to a full-grown adult, and it's compacted into a shorter amount of time. So you're not only, you know, she's learning about the world. She hasn't had any society to take in before that. So she's learning about the world, she's learning about herself, and she's growing up and going through different stages of life quickly. So that's why some things she might, you know, make a different decision, because we all made different decisions as teenagers than we do now. We learn and we grow and we get better. And I think by the end of it, yes, it's not going to be like she is a perfect member of society, because she will never be like the perfect, society member, but she is confident in herself. She knows what she likes. She doesn't let anybody give her shit, and she is in control of her future. At the end, she's literally trying to become a doctor so she can help people. And yes, she did keep her ex-husband as a goat pet, but I think that's hilarious because he deserved to have a goat brain.
That's not what I meant. They didn't lock her into one thing. Like, she wasn't exactly pointed in one direction. She kept a little bit of all of her experiences with her. That's what I meant by that.
Yeah, and that's that's what life is all about, man. You keep a little bit of all your experiences.
I know, but I was just saying that they didn't. She didn't just marry the dude and became the doting wife and this, that, and the other thing, which wouldn't be like her personality. They left it. Yeah, she's her own person and she has the job she wants, but that's not, your job isn't who you are.
That's
she has that thing, but she kept pieces of it, which we all do.
Mm-hmm.
So I like that she kept pieces of it, and he didn't just, Jersey barrier into one specific route, which would be very unnatural for people. So I feel like we're agreeing. We're just saying different things.
Yeah,
she kept pieces. The whole thing was weird. All right. So the pieces she kept were weird. It was all weird. It was very, very. And
yes.
shocker. Don't think this was based on a true story. I don't know. I don't know if the bringing people back to life and everything gave that away. But it was nice to see that, even though I don't know, it kind of felt, she went through so much, but it still felt like it ended kind of abruptly. But I think that's because we're so used to movies giving us that 3-minute scene of walking off into the sunset, holding hands with the lover, coming home from the war, fixing the problem. We're so used to that, and they were just like, they just gave us that kind of pan out scene of the little pieces of her all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
If I can get a word in edgewise in this ranting.
Yeah.
We're not ranting. We're discussing the film, Steve.
I almost wish they gave us more of just her at the end, if that makes sense. Like we were kind of talking about, like, bringing that ex back into the picture. If they would have just, like, focused on her as, like, the studious student, and, like, now she learns anatomy, and, like, she's getting ready for tests. So obviously, like, she's been in school. So I'm like, I almost would have preferred just more of her life.
The reason why I wouldn't be okay with that is because the whole movie is not cookie cutter, and they're very clearly making it not a typical movie. So I think if they had a perfect tie a bow on it ending, it wouldn't feel appropriate for the movie.
I was just saying what I would want.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's expressing her opinion on that.
Debating that.
Don't debate me.
Debating it.
No, but the right from the get-go, I think if you read anything about the film, saw at least 4 seconds of a trailer, or read who the director was and looked up his filmography, you'd have been like, okay, this is going to be a little strange. It's going to be different for sure. But right from the get-go, I think it was nice how Willem Dafoe's character is explained kind of as a father and a scientist and as a human by the things he experienced from his father. So it shows what he learned from his good and bad experiences, and then we get to watch her learning from her good and bad experiences, and some that meant nothing. So that was kind of neat. But I've always liked, because it was kind of, and I don't have very good film examples, but it was kind of steampunky in the scenery, and then it was kind of like BioShock, the video game, with the technology, where you're like, they're all surviving underwater with all this technology, and you just buy it. And I think from the get-go, because they started not brutally, but it was like, this is a weird film from 3 seconds in, you kind of buy into that, and you accept that world very quickly, which I think is important for a film. If it takes me an hour to get the sense of what the world is like, I have a hard time paying attention to the story because I don't know how the world's functioning. But this was like, they had the galleries for the surgery, so that would have been for us a couple 100 years ago. That's how they would have taught medical classes. Mm-hmm. So it had the old style architecture mixed with the new technology and the completely outlandish feats of medicine.
Yeah, and you're kind of like never sure exactly what time you're in. You kind of assume it's like earlier 1900s, but then, like you said, sometimes it feels like it's more modern. So yeah, that was
how many times have Steve and I said, for these films where it's like 1955 and it just slams up there in
or
big
like the
block
exact
lettering,
July 7th, 2020,
and we're like, we didn't need that. It's like, because the year, like, it didn't matter. It wasn't about the time period. It was about her time period almost.
Yeah,
so
and then it also, you're not really sure if it's supposed to be set in the real world because, like, some of the sky was, like, crazy saturated with, like, colors and swirls that, like, would never happen in real life. And then there were also those, like tram cars or whatever, like, going around. Yeah, they were hovering.
Cable cars. And then the boat that was really futuristic looking,
and
but
it was
also
like green
had
smoke coming out of it.
It had the smokestack, so it's like, okay, so, and I do like how they don't tell you, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time it is. Right from the get-go, we're reanimating dead bodies, so we're like, all right, apparently anything goes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I like that they didn't make Willem Dafoe a bad guy. Like, they didn't make him out to be like the evil genius. He was like kind of just genuinely a curious guy, and he cared about what he did, but it's just like such a weird, it's like the whole thing is a weird morality thing where you're like, what is good and what is bad in this case? Obviously to us, doing something like that in real life would be unthinkable.
The amount of years in jail you would get from trying to put an unborn baby's brain into the mother after she committed suicide. It's not 4 years in jail. You would get multiple, like, that kind of stuff was nuts.
Yeah, but like, I feel like if you think of it as like a dystopian, like, novel sort of story where you take out the reality in those instances, like, you can still kind of, find your own, like, well, in this case, I feel like even though Willem Dafoe did this terrible thing, like, he actually seemed to be a genuine person.
And he only had a certain capacity because of his experiences. His capacity for it was very limited, and then it took him, it took her being away for so long and his health declining so fast for him to almost grow just a little bit more, which is neat because he was locked into science. Yeah. Science.
Very matter of fact.
So that was pretty neat. But right from the start, I did enjoy the setting up, so to speak, because it was very odd and very different, and they wore the dapper clothing and spoke with, and I me and words, like, I liked the way they spoke in this film because it wasn't, they said a lot and they said it very colorfully, which was kind of neat, but then every character was doing it, and I was like, oh, so this is normal, the way they're talking. So it was kind of like an old-timey using, older verbiage for, things that we can relate to in our time, but it wasn't too much where we're like, I think that was a compliment. I think he was describing something good.
You could very clearly follow what they were saying, even when they were using flourishing words,
So, Steve, did you like the start of the movie?
Yeah, it was good.
it was good.
All right, you guys keep going.
It's good.
Well, yeah, I mean, we start with her in the complete, toddler stage.
Well, I mean, at this point, I don't even think we need to go through it all at
Oh, no, I wasn't going to say that.
Like, I just think, like, it's It was like what you were guys saying. Like when they just throw you into a story where everything is crazy. Like there's chicken dogs walking around the fucking house. There's a duck goat.
The
like
chicken pig.
Yeah, like you have to instantly be ready for, okay, so this is going to be weird. The whole concept is people wanting to fuck a corpse. And it's like, okay,
yeah,
you better wrap your head around that pretty quickly because there's weirder shit happening.
Can we go over some of that stuff? First of all, big no-no.
What, corpse fucking?
No,
usually, yeah.
Well, yeah. That's a little, but reanimating dead people, it's like you're playing God here. Don't do that. But they
worked out pretty well for Frankenstein.
Dr. Frankenstein.
Oh, sorry.
Frankenstein was the master.
Sorry, I forgot he got.
Everyone says that. Everyone knows what you mean, but people are always like, "It was actually Dr. Frankenstein."
Yeah, but then it's Frankenstein's monster, not.
Well, he was a doctor.
Yeah,
he had to be a doctor.
You call the monster Frankenstein because he didn't earn his PhD yet.
So, fate played a big part in how she even got to be, and that was Willem Dafoe's main thing. He was like, fate brought you, and it was like, we need a body, and fate brought me a body. And it was like, all right, that's a little dark.
It's supposed to make you feel.
And that one little scene of what's the fiance's name? I think his name is Max, and Dafoe in like during dinner, and he's like, "Oh, I thought you made her just as like a mate." Well, because he's like, I didn't want to step on anyone's toes.
Yeah, he kind of asks permission, and you're like,
and even Dafoe's,
I didn't think about that. Maybe he did.
Yeah, and even Dafoe's like, I've tried to fuck her, but I can't.
I definitely thought about.
He
that
says
from the get-go.
It would take the amount of electricity that powers South London to make me feel something, and I was like, I didn't. That's a lot of electricity.
Yeah.
It's like I knew I was strapping in for like a weird concept, but I didn't think we were going to like. Yeah. Oh man, I could have fucked a corpse.
Well, okay, but
that's where it went immediately.
Well, I feel like. Well, first of all, neither of you are gonna like what I have to say about this, but I feel like there are things that can relate to real life circumstances within this story, such as being a woman and everybody is trying to get in your pants, and that is just what it's like, in the world as an attractive woman. So she was in that position many times, and she had to kind of navigate,
I think
how
she
that
let them
goes.
all in.
Yeah, she did, but she was curious and she was experiencing the world.
No, I was more saying how it's creepy that Dafoe has that thought, like that I would have had.
Well, I feel like it's not creepy because everybody. Sorry, go on.
Like if I made a goldfish, I wouldn't be like, oh damn, I could have fucked that goldfish. It's
but it's a human.
Wouldn't you like find some kind of like, I made this, so I'm like a parental kind of thing?
Well,
like maybe don't
he
fuck
does.
your
He does say
creation?
that. He said my responsibility towards her upbringing and things like that outweighed my desires or whatever.
Yeah, but you can assume that a guy is bringing a younger girl back to life because he wants to fuck her. Like, you can assume that.
Well, I think he was purely science driven at the start, and then it turned into something where he was like, where he had those thoughts, and the parental caretaker overcame it. I think that was an easier decision for him because apparently it was hard for him to reach whatever you want to call it back then.
Happy.
But so
reach happy.
Some of those weird things, we can continue on this path here. Little weird premise, and then we're never given a timeline on how old her brain is. So
you have to figure it out.
When Dafoe was like, well, why don't you marry her? In my head, I was like, it's been 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. So the baby wasn't even born yet. So maybe like, even if she was about to have the baby, that brain is only, it's a year less old. So I was like, I don't know about that. And I was like, wait, it's a weird movie. Let it go.
Yeah, we aren't told from the get-go how long it's been since he did that, but we assume that she's kind of in a toddler phase based on how she's acting, like the way she's talking and the way she's like smashing plates
and
on
all
the floor and
her
stuff.
scars have healed, and yeah.
Yeah, so like you can assume it's been a while, but then also she's at an accelerated rate, so she goes again from being a toddler to a full-blown adult by the end of the movie. So you kind of have to just like base it on her.
I just went by her hair length.
Yeah, that
and
too.
It did get longer and
How I
longer, so you
assumed
know
she
it
was older.
like 2 inches a day by the end, and then they do throw a little bit of time, but again, time's not important. But it was just weird because when I watched it, I was just like, maybe don't have sex with her.
Yeah, it definitely feels very like
But
weird and uncomfortable.
She goes to like kiss him or something like that, and he's like, well, not till we're married. I'm like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, again, he was
So
the only like actual gentleman in her life,
Mm-hmm.
and he had to suffer the most, I think, to like let her go and let her experience the world. And then when she finally came back, I think he was just like, cool, I finally have my time to be happy. And then she goes off with the ex again, and he's like, all right, I guess I can wait another couple of weeks to
Right.
be happy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's also like the pushover character.
Yeah.
He's the very like
always
he's not
feel-
going to stand
I
up
feel
for
bad
himself.
for the pushover characters because I'm the pushover.
Yeah, but I don't think anybody's. Well, some of us want to sleep with you, Steve.
Some of us.
Yes, everyone in this room, cat included.
Oh God.
But the I think we can. We're at the sex portion of the movie.
Yeah.
So for me,
Let me turn my page.
as he
Hold on.
turns his page to the whole page of sex notes
For-
Steve has.
No, I like because again, like I didn't view the sex as like an erotic thing. I didn't view it as like an exploitative thing. Where I thought it was just like they threw it in the movie to almost like put you in her point of view, where it's nothing. Like sex isn't anything to her. It's just this is how I get happy, and
Well,
this is how
she-
I figured out.
She
how to
figures it
feel
out for
something.
herself, and that's what she
Right.
calls it. She's like, my hand make me happy.
Yeah, so that's why, I mean, again, this movie is insanely sexual. Every 15 minutes she's getting, some other dude is plowing her. But it's not even that, they're showing all that. It's more of her slowly realizing, yeah, instant gratification and instant happiness isn't what's life is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can block out everything. You can, hide all the stuff with whatever. Like all the problems with Mark Ruffalo, she was like, no, I have these other guys to make me happy for 20 minutes.
I think that's a good commentary on something a lot of women experience, where
Michael talking about the woman experience. Let's
Yeah.
see.
I know a lot about women.
Yeah, go for
It's
it.
great. Becomes instantly attached to the point of madness,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and it shows that. And I'm pretty sure every woman has experienced some guy's relentless pursuit where it was fun for a time, but when she wanted it to be over, he had to decide when it was over,
Mhm.
and he never really decided it was over.
Right.
But they show him now trying to ruin her happiness because he can't have the happiness,
Right.
which now
Yeah, because he
correct-
didn't come
Typical man
out.
correct
behavior.
correct me if this opinion on women is wrong, but actually don't, because it's right, because I knew things. But that is experienced by a lot of women, and a lot of men are very, I can't have her, so no one should.
Yeah.
And I feel like every woman's experienced
No,
that
and I
to
mean,
the point
look-
of ad nauseum. You know
Look
what
at
I mean?
how every man other than Max talked to her. It was like Mark Ruffalo kept saying, I will throw you off the fucking boat. I will fucking beat this guy to death.
And
And then like you get to the other guy, I will shoot you in the back of the head
It
so
was
I know you were leaving.
the violence in language came out immediately
Right.
when they weren't satisfied because they were used to getting it.
Right.
So
Also,
how
if
did I do with
that
that
was fine.
commentary? Yes, thank you.
Also, if you think of it as maybe this did happen early 1900s, saying things like that to a lady is not anything to even bat an eyelash
And
at,
Right.
because
They were
women were
expecting-
abused. back
They were
then.
expecting do what you're told.
Yes, and
Every other woman that they've said that, or they haven't even had to say that to the other women because they just did what they were told and
Right.
never challenged anyone. Where she doesn't know she's not supposed. Society says she's not supposed to challenge the men, but she isn't told that.
Right. Well, I think it's also interesting commentary on, like, if you do think of it as society in the early 1900s and how she didn't have any knowledge of society at all. So everything that she's learning and everything that she's deciding to be right is just her own opinion on it. So I think it's really interesting to like see what she, you know, considers to be like, oh, well, why would I take that shit from you?
For herself.
Because I'm important too. And without having like that, you know, girls are raised to believe that they are secondary to men mentality. Like without that, she considers herself to like just be an equal member of society.
And you know how we always complain about like women characters in movies where they're trying to like force feed almost like the empowerment down your throat instead of just showing you a powerful woman. Like this is one of the times where I'm like, you showed a woman who knew what she wanted to get. She went after it. She got it. And you didn't have to like show 15 clips of her getting knocked down and then Mark Ruffalo picking her back up or like her picking herself back up. It's like, no, she wanted to see the world. She wanted to have life experiences and she went out and did it.
And even when she was mentally like years younger than Mark Ruffalo, she still like, was more like stable and like
she was able to process harder things a lot better than some of these dudes could, just because she went into it like, yeah, whatever. I mean, I need money. I want sex. This is how I do it. Cool. Whatever. It's a means to an end.
And for the women's side of it, they showed the duality of that as well with the madame of the brothel, who visually phenomenal casting choice with the tattoos.
That's exactly who I would expect.
The age of the skin with the corset and how
and
it
like
folded.
The raspy voice.
The voice from too many cigarettes and a whole lot of, so I like that choice visually for her. That really added some weight to it. And she didn't pull her punches.
No.
Because she even told some of the guys that were coming in, I think she's a little handicapped. I don't know what word she used, but she's like, I think she's a little slow. And then with her, and I forget her name too, brothel lady number 7, I don't know. But the woman,
the one she makes friends with, and
later makes friends with
brothel bestie,
and she
just best friend things.
She's more of the because she never had a mothering figure, and
or even like a female friend.
Well, the only one was the
old lady on the cruise, right?
No, the maid in the home. Was her first woman experience, but she only did what she was told.
Yeah.
And she had a very non-attached, even to the point where because she's been gone for so long, they make another one of her.
Yeah.
And she's like, I like this one better than that. So she was very disdain for Bella.
Yeah, Bella.
And that was kind of neat to see the madame be very forceful and blunt and show the dark side, but also how you can use that because she says once you know the world, then you can change it. So she was getting good advice from completely different characters in completely different ways, but they both were doing the same thing to help her grow. One was just much more sexy about it than the other.
Yeah. I'm going to bite your earlobe and tell you about the world.
Yeah, that was sometimes I just can't control myself. I just like bites her a couple times. I thought that was funny because I could, my family's biters, so sometimes you just get bit. And I thought that was funny. It was like, they're adults and they're biting each other. That's hilarious. But I did one small complaint, as this movie, I think even in the title description, talks about equality. The amount of white nakedness did not equal the amount of other cultures' nakedness, and I, for one, was not okay. I was unhappy with...
You wanted more other cultures naked as well?
Yeah.
You're tired of seeing white naked men?
Well, and ladies.
And women. So there was a lot of white...
cock.
Exposed everything.
Yes.
And there was one black breast in the whole film. And in a movie about equality, should have put more of those in for me. Just saying.
Just for Mike.
Just saying.
Yeah. Also,
I'm half
unsnipped
kidding
penises.
about that.
That's all we got to see. I want to see some
didn't
Let's
actually
go.
didn't actually focus that hard on.
Oh,
him.
I was there for you. Don't even worry.
If you're learning about some things and going through some things, Steve.
No, it's like when we saw that play.
We're here for you.
I was trying to solely focus on seeing.
All right,
the
we're
cock.
not talking about the play.
No, that's weird.
Jeez.
But to continue with that, a lot of gratuitous sex and nudity to the point where I was like, gee whiz, is everybody just going to be naked the whole rest of the film? And they were. It was like 50 minutes of just naked people.
And I honestly think that was part of it. They showed you so much of it that even you as the viewer was like, all right, enough. I've seen enough. And like that's what Bella is feeling.
Yeah.
Like when it gets to that last scene of her like tied to the fucking rafters and
You
the
can
guy's
see
just
it in
humping
her
her
eyes.
legs, she's just like, all right. This isn't even doing anything for me anymore. Like, let's just get this over with.
Yeah.
And like,
And if
that's
you-
how
if
you
you-
act as the audience.
If you noticed, it started out as sex and slowly moved away from sex to more of a fetish because there was the father that brought in the two sons
Yes.
for a
that
teaching
was
moment.
weird.
Yeah. That's
And it looked like she had fun with that, where she was like, and if it's taking too long, a finger here
in the
or a little
arse.
choking,
odd. Yeah.
and it'll get them to finish sooner. So it's like she was having a little bit of fun, but the next couple with the guy doing the crab thing, and he seemed to get off with her hair to his nose. I don't know if he was chewing on it, smelling on it, whatever he
the
was doing.
subtitle said chewing, so he was. He
Yeah.
was
Oh, you put
munching
subtitles
down.
on for that? Ooh, I don't think I needed to read it.
There was no sound effects, but just what he was doing.
And then with the leg thing, it was like, okay, so she experienced. Even though she's in a brothel and experiences very different things, a more normal sexual experience, and then it went past the normal sexual experience, and she was like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah.
Because she did everything for the first time till it became normal, then past it. She did that with the little souffle cakes, and Mark Ruffalo's like, no, you only need one. And then
She
he
ate too
takes a
many
nap,
and
and she leaves, and she ate too many and chucked. Then with the drinking,
She drank
the
way
first
too
one,
much.
the first one you saw, she was like, this isn't good. Then she tried it again. Then she tried it again, and she was like, wow, and then the next scene is her passed out in the elevator.
Yeah.
And then with everything was that way. Tried it the first time, normal amount, then in excess, almost to regret, and then she backpedals. She's like, okay, so here's my line with this, here's my line with this, here's my line with this.
Right.
So that was kind of neat to see.
Yeah, and I mean, all of the, sexual stuff is her teenage years. I mean, if you think about anybody in high school, yourself in high school, like when you first learn about sex or when you first experience it, it's like your mind is blown and you think it's the best thing ever. And it's just different because she is physically an adult and she's not, in high school with other kids her age. So it's like fine and innocent, whatever. But it's like a lot more serious because she's in a brothel.
Look at what she goes from. Like that first scene with Mark Ruffalo, she's like, why don't people just do this all the time?
And
And
she
then
does
it gets to
all
the
the
end.
time.
She realizes what happens
And then
when
she's
you do
just
it all
like,
the time.
oh my God, this is just like annoying at this point. Like
Yeah.
I'm tired of doing this.
Yeah, and she learns, like what Michael was saying, that when she wanted it and it's on her terms and she's enjoying it, that's totally different from, well, I think sex is fun, so I'm just going to do it with anybody at any time. And then she
Yeah.
realizes that not everybody is doing it
has
because
the same intent with
yeah,
it.
not everyone's trying to both
Yeah, and I mean,
have fun.
like she learns that from the madame, where she's like, some guys like it that you don't like it, but like, and it's also kind of like her experience with Mark Ruffalo. Like, she wanted like adventure, she wanted experience, but she wanted to be included in the experience and the adventure. So when he just like puts her in a box and then she's on a ship locked down for 3 days, she's like, this is an adventure. This is like forced companionship
Yeah.
at this point.
She's like, I'm your prisoner now.
Yeah.
and
the
they
fact-
do explore the prisoner thing
Yeah.
several times.
And the fact that like Mark Ruffalo is just like, well, I did it to be romantic. Now ride me. And
Yeah.
like she just walks out of the room because it's not on her terms. It's not what she enjoys.
And also he didn't do any effort to like make it exciting for her.
Right.
He's just like, okay, fuck me now.
Yeah, he's like, he didn't go up to her and was like, hey, I'm going to take you on this nice vacation. We're going to go here. Like, come with me
no
instead of
romanticizing.
Yeah, it was just get in this box and then, hey, look, we're on a ship. Deal with it.
Well, and the other, I guess my slight difference in that opinion is she could have made the best of it and decided to just do things to spite him.
Right.
She found a couple, she's like, these are my new friends, and she hasn't gotten laid in 20 years. Isn't that terrible? And then they have this interesting friendship.
Yeah, that old lady was my favorite part.
She was fun.
I don't remember his name, but the fella she was with, her companion, had a different set of insights, and he even admits later on, no, I showed you all of the poor things to hurt you because I couldn't stand your like ignorant bliss of everything. Yeah. You needed to be shown this, and he apologized for it. Mm-hmm. But she also says, you're just a little boy afraid of the world. Right. And he agrees. But so what she did to him was what he did to her in their own way. So that was kind of neat to see, because they didn't show the dregs of society at all. And then they showed the extreme of the dregs of society but the one thing and if you guys noticed that there was a barrier between her and that type. So because she was born into a certain level, the stairs were gone. So she couldn't even stoop down to their level, even if she wanted to. The stairs of that building were in ruins. Right. So I kind of like the kind
of like representing privilege.
The illustration of that. I don't know if I'd use the word privilege because it's been overused like crazy.
Sorry, can I find a synonym of the word privilege, please? Does anyone have one?
Yeah, well, it's just I don't know. There's haves and have-nots in every society, everywhere. That's just how it works. If someone has a lot, someone has a little. That's just how it works. But I liked the physical barrier he put in between her and that's even with the amount of money Willem Dafoe put in her dress. It was kind of the thing that you will never be able to be without because of where you're from. And that I kind of liked how they did that. It's like you can't get there even if you wanted to. And then the people that were saying they were going to help, the two the boatsmen there, they took from her. I agree with Mark Ruffalo. If I'd have just won all that money, I'd have been pissed too, okay?
Yes.
I'd have been very upset if I won the equivalent of a lifetime of money at a roulette table, which is hard to do statistically. Look it up. It's just hard to do. And then she just gives it away. And I like how that still shows the frivolous nature. Like, she doesn't have a firm grasp on anything.
Yeah, and she's so innocent at that point that she doesn't even think that handing the money off to the boatsman
it's not even a thought that people would do that.
Yeah,
why?
She's
because
so innocent.
I reacted this way to those poor things. They must share the same sentiment. And
I also think that it is kind of a statement on money, how she doesn't even think of money as being worth anything.
It holds no weight to her.
Yeah. Until, she's trying to piece it together with the people who need money. She's like, well, if they need it and we have so much of it, let's give it to them. Yeah, it's very like, childlike innocence.
Yeah.
Well, and like even the guy that she's with, when she's like, we should help them, and he's like, well, what would we even do?
What would we even do?
And it's like, the minute we go down there, we're going to get attacked. We're going to do this. And it's like, you don't even know that, but you're just assuming because you're on this high pedestal and they're down there that the minute you walk down there, they're going to attack you and try and rob you. Instead of just being like, hey, well, we could give it a shot.
Right. We could try.
Yeah. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? We get robbed and we get tied up and then we get beaten. Whatever. Who cares?
I do like his bluntness of that, because that is typical behavior of a have coming into contact with have-nots. Yeah. That's just how it works.
And look at Bella, she may have came from money or whatever the scientist had, but she's just like a normal person. She lived on the streets. She's doing this, she's doing that. And yet these high society people, the minute she started talking to them bluntly like a human, oh man, you haven't been fucked in 20 years. Like, that sucks. Like, I hope you use your hand to make yourself happy. Like, they instantly.
I do occasionally.
Yeah. And like, even the higher ups are just like, oh yeah, this person's awesome. Like, I don't care what they are or who they are. Like,
a little bit of
hang out with them.
Well, and it's a reminder of what they used to be.
Right.
Before they became accustomed to what they are now.
Right.
And that happens with everything. And you see that a lot in our society, where you get to a certain level with either fame or fortune, where you're not surrounded by regular people anymore. You're completely cut off. And then that's why the serious haves of this world, whenever they talk, put out a statement, it feels so disconnected because they're so disconnected.
Right.
And they showed a good bit of that, especially when they explain something to Bella and just expect it to just sink in immediately, but she always needed proof.
Right.
So they were surprised, because he physically had to restrain her because she would have fallen right off those steps, because she just blinded herself towards her goals but wasn't grounded in reality. He had to physically restrain her. Right. And that kind of shocked them a little bit. Was like, are you so blind? And that helps them understand her. But it was nice how there was only 1.5, because they switched his brain with a goat. There was only a 1.5 outside character. So from all of those experiences, she only took the woman from the brothel and the ex, which was kind of spitefulness, but whatever. It was funny. Yeah. He's got a goat brain now. That's the only thing she brought back with her to her home. Right. And it is kind of neat that she didn't stay anywhere. She went back to what was comfortable, which is what we all would do.
Right.
Yeah.
Is
if we are this person with these things. Sure, we can go experience the world, but there's always a homecoming sort.
Yeah, there's always a place you feel most comfortable.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it is not among the poor things.
Well,
it's with your goat fiance and your current actual fiance and your lovely brothel bestie.
Hey, she was making an experiment out of Mr. Goat Man.
Yeah.
Right.
She had to do some science.
Well, and I mean, she turned the whole brothel thing into an experiment. She's like, no, all right, well, here's the experiment. We have nothing. How are we going to survive? And instantly she's just like, cool, I'll get a job. Mark Ruffalo just gave up on life.
Yeah,
and
he just started crying.
Complaining on the bench. But she's like, no, I'll get us a hotel. Yeah,
You've had money this whole time?
Yeah.
And it's also kind of like, when you take emotions out of the equation and you take like your own selfishness out of the equation, like you can go on and do shit if you just don't sit and wallow,
Right. And it's like Mark Ruffalo, as soon as she found out she had money, he's like, oh, you're a selfish bitch. And then she's like, no, I'm not. Like,
she's like, oh, well, I had it here if we really needed it. We didn't really need it.
I mean, which is true. I mean, she almost fucking died
trying
to help people out of selflessness, not selfishness.
He's not used to having nothing, so the moment he has nothing, it's an emergency. Where to her, it was like,
it's like, cool.
I don't know what is an emergency, so nothing's an emergency,
right?
Until she sees him acting like a baby.
I just look, people will pay me for their cock inside me. All right, I'll do that. Just the fucking bluntness of how they talk about it is great.
It was pretty, and like I said before, the sex and nudity can be done tastefully and artfully. That was not.
It was fine.
That was not how it went about.
It was fine.
And that was not how it went about in this movie at all. It was very in your face, and whatever. It's not my thing. I don't need to see that in my films. That's not why I go to the movies. That's why I watch slasher films from the 80s, but not these type of movies. But it was interesting that it did teach her a lesson. Did they spend quite a bit of time on it? Yeah. Could they have spent less time with the sex stuff and maybe fit in a couple more life experiences? But they hit the major ones. A caretaker, good experiences, bad experiences, traveling, having money, not having money, being happy, being sad, being angry. So they went through the basics of it, so you can't fault them on that. But the one thing that we didn't really get into that I really liked was I knew it was going to be shot very differently. And because I think I think I was talking to you, Steve, about it, where I was like, they're going to be having a regular conversation. The camera's going to be here, then it's going to be here, then it's going to be here, and then throw in fisheye lenses.
A lot of fisheye.
Yeah, it was a lot.
That was kind of cool.
But I did like how different that was.
Yeah, I liked when they were like walking through the one like street and all, because they had the fisheye lens, the buildings are like warping on the edges.
Yeah.
And,
and like even Danielle was saying, like especially when they were on the boat, it's like they purposely made things CGI to make the elements look more fantastical.
100%.
And like it almost reminded me, what was that movie we watched? It was like the Budapest Hotel or something.
Yeah, that's literally the movie. Yeah,
it reminded me of that, where it was like the scenery was so like fantastical. It was almost out of like a storybook.
Contrast of colors, the brightness of things.
Where like
no hallways are that bright.
And like the environments and the sky and like the water, everything looked like dialed up.
And I think obviously they did that purposely so that it would feel like a not real
that's what
world.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, I think they did that because it makes us notice things we wouldn't notice in movies.
Right.
Where because the colors were so vibrant and there was sharp edges and the skylines and things like that, it kind of made us look around the screen.
Yeah.
And we've been living on this planet the whole time we've been living on this planet, and how many times do you drive and we see buildings and people and pay it no mind.
Right.
This was kind of neat where the different camera angles, and it was never, sometimes when they'd switch frames, the center of frame wouldn't be in the same place, so it would force you to look over.
Right.
But when it changes immediately, you're looking at something, and sometimes I would catch myself where they switch an angle, and the center of frame is not in the center, but I'm looking here, and then I go, hey, what's that? And then look away from the meat and potatoes of the scene, and then go, oh, gee whiz, those clouds are kind of crazy. That building's shaped weird. That kind of thing.
I do think they also were trying to be like, she sees the world differently, and we're kind of seeing it through her eyes, through like this innocence.
That was the first time she'd ever been outside of that house, so everything should be vibrant and new.
Right, and it's like Danielle pointed out when we were watching it, like the beginning of the movie starts out in black and white. And then the minute she starts getting some world experiences, then color starts getting thrown in every now and then. And then once she's actually out in the world, everything is color.
Actually, it starts off, I think, when it switches to color, like very vibrant. And then at some point, they kind of like turn it down, I feel like, towards the lower part of her life, because when she's in the brothel, everything is like cloudy and gloomy, and that kind of like shows her, when she's at her lowest, and then at the end it like gets back up to where it was, not quite where it was at the beginning.
Like, it was more like with the foliage and the greenery, it was more realistic. A color palette, and I think that they had the shrubs, and you saw the pets. If you want to call it pets very loosely, science experiments that survived, I guess. But then we got to see color in them too, because they were part of her home, what she was comfortable with, and it kind of it wasn't as shocking anymore because she kind of settled into who she is and what she wants, and she surrounded herself with things that she wanted, and some for amusement, like the ex's brain swap with the goat type thing.
Yeah, so that's just for fun.
Yeah, it was definitely strange film.
Roller coaster.
I wouldn't have bet on Emma Stone winning an Oscar for that, but the costume one didn't surprise me at all. Like winning an award for the
fluffy.
costume. Like we were saying, it's like they just put fluffy sleeves on everything. Everything was fluffy sleeves.
Well, I feel like the reason why maybe she won an Oscar is because it's such an original type of role. It's not like she's playing a princess of England. It's like it's something that's so like unthinkable as like a standard role, and because she had to, do all these different going through the ages, and she also has to be a little bit handicapped the whole time, and her character's constantly changing.
It just showed a wide range for the actress, which is fine, but
I mean, look at DiCaprio. Like, the dude finally won an Oscar for just showing range. Like, he grunted. He fucking slept in a camel. Like, he does all this shit, and they finally give him an Oscar.
Slept in a camel?
Oscars are rigged
Doesn't
anyway.
he sleep in
Wasn't that a bear?
Oh, yeah, he sleeps in a bear. Sorry.
I don't think
I
there's
thought it was a camel.
camels in like the Northwest Territory tundra, but it would have been funny.
The
But
Oscars
yeah.
are a popularity contest.
Yeah, and like that's the thing with the Oscar. Like
It's all
doesn't matter.
campaigning
yeah,
and nonsense.
like I would love to see who she was up against because I know the girl from Killers of the Flower Moon was finally up, like the first Native American like lady as an Oscar.
that should tell you why
nominee.
she didn't win right there.
Yeah, and like I get it. It's a popularity contest. I don't know how they go into the voting because I know like people have gotten snubbed every fucking year, and it's just how it is.
We didn't even watch it. So.
Yeah, but like there's always like that one movie that comes out.
I watched it.
Yeah.
Killers of the Flower Moon was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I really want to see it just because
But
of the historical.
it was a true story
yeah.
that really happened.
Yeah, and of course they can't be like,
and
oh, we're admitting fault. Here's an Oscar.
well, white people did terrible things. We can't bring more attention to it.
Yeah.
No.
Right.
Heavens no.
Right. But they gave Oppenheimer 7 of them. That was a white guy who did pretty bad things too.
We won, Steve.
Oh, all right. Good
Yeah.
point. Good point. All right.
Yeah.
We can tell that story.
No, but overall, with the movie,
Overall, Michael didn't like it. We get it.
Overall, I thought it was he did a lot of things well with the movie. For me, it was too much certain things.
All right, we get it.
All right, it's just my opinion. I thought it was gratuitous in the amount of everything, but everything was gratuitous. The language, the sex, the treatment of women, the treatment of men, the visuals of the poor, everything was over the top. Where, I would have preferred to see, maybe something a little different instead of 50 minutes of people being naked, but whatever.
Well,
not my cup of tea.
I did enjoy it, and I think I really mostly liked the character arc because even in the beginning, I was very weirded out by Bella's character, and by the end, I ended up really rooting for her, and I really like how they showed the growth in her character. I think it was very intriguing the whole time, and I didn't mind the gratuitousness of anything because I feel like it made it feel like the extreme emotions of life, and they're really showing all of those things.
It wasn't unrealistic.
Well, I'm just saying I enjoyed it, even though you didn't enjoy it. That's what I enjoyed about it. So that's all.
Okay. I was just saying it wasn't unrealistic. Worse things happen on the planet all the time.
I just mean like they're highlighting all these big things that
Well,
whatever.
before Michael and Danielle start beating each other,
No,
I'll
I
just
was-
say I was
agreeing.
I was middle of the road. I liked it. Could take it, leave it. Probably won't watch it again. But I thought it did what it needed to do. Told a good story. I liked Emma Stone in it. I'm glad she won an Oscar finally. I think this was her first one.
I think it was her second.
Second?
She won for something else.
But yeah, I don't think it was any. It definitely told a different side of like a woman's journey, which was nice. And they made Mark Ruffalo kind of a douchebag, which I also enjoyed. And then,
I also like that it was a little bit sci-fi. It's like a little bit like fantasy, a little dystopian.
And they take it to the extremes of everything, like what you guys were saying. But yeah, I'd say it was a solid experience. If you find yourself agreeing with Michael a lot, maybe you won't like it. If you find yourself agreeing with Danielle a lot, maybe you'll love it. You never know.
Or you don't have to agree with any of us and form your own opinions.
You can fucking hate it for all we care.
Because that was what this story was about. Make your own choices and build yourself with your own.
You know what, Michael?
Decisions.
I respect your decision to hate this movie.
I didn't hate it at all. He did a lot of things really well.
Yeah.
I don't need the gratuitous sex in the movie.
This is great. This is the one time I didn't hate the movie and I wasn't the bad guy.
I didn't hate it. I don't want that much gratuitous sex
all
in
right,
films.
Michael, we'll just change everything about the movie to make it better.
No. I get it. It was a lot, and it's a lot to take in if you're not expecting that amount of naked white men and I mean, if you had a crush on Emma Stone for a while, I guess this is the movie for you.
No,
But-
because she's like young and partially handicapped, so it made you feel awkward. If you didn't feel awkward, you're the problem.
Yeah, we might have to call somebody. But yeah, I mean, that was Poor Things. I'd say it's a mixed review from all of us, but
No,
check
but
it out, see what you think.
As a film, you should watch it.
Yeah,
As a film, if you are I wouldn't really call us students of film or anything weird like that, but if you enjoy the structure of films, the story of films, how things
Visual
are portrayed,
and the music.
the mechanics of how a director can impact a story, this is a fantastic film.
Right.
I'm sure. I don't know. I've never taken a film course. This will probably be in some of those booklets on.
I'm sure this is going to be studied at some point.
This type of film. Here's
Right.
some good examples that show this. It'll definitely be in some of those, some of that
like,
learning knowledge for filmography.
Right.
things
It's like how
that.
they always show you fucking Citizen Kane for some reason. And it's like, yeah, you'll learn something from it. Whether you like the movie or not, you'll learn something about
Yeah.
how movies are made watching these films.
If you're gonna watch Citizen Kane, you got to do it on a projector the way it was meant to be viewed. That's what I've had some
There you
bougie
go.
film people tell me. But
Yeah.
Poor Things.
Check it out.
Yeah.
You never know. You might like it.
Form your own opinions.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe next
then-
time we'll just we'll trash like a shitty 80s slasher just to get away from
No.
some
Next
of
time
this.
we'll watch
These
a
are the
movie
fun
with
ones.
no nudity for Michael.
No, I want a moderate amount of nudity, like
Okay.
Zombievers.
Mock me
Moderate.
for my opinions. How 2024 of us.
Anyway, we'll catch you guys next time, and maybe we'll be a little bit of richer things next time.